This event is sponsored by Miro. Miro is the online whiteboard platform where product teams can work together effectively. If you don't know where to start, it's packed with over 50 templates for product teams. Whether you need a Kanban, mind map, retrospective, product roadmap, or user story map, we've got you covered. Try it for free.
Hi everyone, thanks so much for joining me today. We're going to talk about how you can design products that are so easy a toddler can do it. But before we jump into the topic, let me quickly introduce myself. My name is Lauren Chan Lee. I grew up in San Francisco in the heart of technology, and I've spent almost my entire career working in tech. I started in strategy roles at Microsoft and StubHub, and then I transitioned into product management when I was at StubHub. Most recently, I was Senior Director of Product Management at Care.com, which is the leading marketplace that connects families with caregivers. I'm really excited to talk to you today about designing great products because this is something that I am very passionate about. I've been passionate about it since my first day as a PM, and I'm just as excited about it today. Because to be honest, none of us as PMs wakes up in the morning excited to build okay-ish products or middling products. All of us want to be product managers that build great products. When you think about a really good user experience, what websites or apps come to mind? Take a second to think about it. I'm willing to bet that many of you thought of Airbnb. So go ahead and give me a thumbs up in the chat if you thought of Airbnb as a website or app with a great user experience. I'd also bet that many of you thought of Apple. So if you picked Apple, give me a high five in the chat. I completely agree that Airbnb and Apple are examples of great user experiences. But I'm here to tell you today that building a great user experience is more than just aesthetics. It's not about designing a page that's full of white space or clean lines. Airbnb and Apple are good user experiences because they have created experiences that are simple and intuitive for their users to use. You don't have to have a minimal aesthetic to be a good user experience. And let me give you an example of what I mean. This is an example that stands out in my mind. It was 2 a.m. I was with a group of friends. We were dancing in someone's living room, and one of my friends had the genius idea to order pizza. Despite it being really late in the evening, despite us having had more than a few drinks, we were able to use the Domino's Pizza app to order pizza and have it delivered to us. It really made our night. It was memorable. And as you can see, this app isn't clean lines or white space. It's not the most beautiful app to use, but people love it. My experience wasn't unique. In fact, it has a 4.8 rating on the App Store across 4.7 million reviews. And here's an example of a review that they got from randallsmusic.com in June. I order consistently from this app and find it to be superior than most other e-commerce companies. It finally seems like the dream of seamless ordering versus painful experience is apparent. I wish other sites were as well planned and maintained. Wow, that is an amazing review. I'm sure any of us as PMs would love to get a review like that. The Domino's app is so easy, it's so simple, it's so intuitive that a drunk person can use it. And not only should good UX be so easy that a drunk person can do it, but it should be so easy that a toddler can do it too. I have 2 Rugrats of my own, and it's been fascinating to see how they use technology. These are kids that are 4 and 6. They can barely read. Before COVID, they didn't even know how to use a mouse. But despite these impediments, which would make it seem like technology should be harder to use, they have absolutely no problems using YouTube Kids. Completely on their own, without any help from me, they discovered Blippi. He's the guy who's in the bottom left corner with a blue shirt and orange suspenders. He's one of the most popular creators on YouTube. And my kids could spell Blippi's name before they could even spell their own. They have binge watched through 4-hour flights as well as a veteran Netflix and chill user has. And it turns out that it's not that my kids are geniuses. YouTube Kids is just that easy to use. Another user, Cheryl Babb, left a 5-star review and writes, "Thank you so much for this amazing app. The ease for the kids navigating it, my 1-year-old can do it." Wow, a 1-year-old. YouTube Kids is so easy. A toddler or even a baby can do it. More than 1 million people agree that this app is great. A drunk person or toddler is a good way to find out how simple and intuitive your user experience is. Because as a product manager, you don't have fresh eyes. You know your product so well that you gloss over some of the details. You don't see the raindrops on the leaves anymore. And you need users to help you see that again. You need your users to give you real, unbiased feedback as you design and build products. So even though I'm slightly joking about having a drunk person or a toddler test your products, I'm completely serious about user testing. And I'm going to show you how you can create a test. The first step is to figure out what you want to learn. This seems super obvious, but it's very, very important. And it's important not to skip over this step. Because when teams skip over this step, it leads to 2 common pitfalls that I see with user testing. The first pitfall is that if you don't have a clear idea of what you want to learn from the test, you might not collect the right data. So you might end up with a lot of data that's just not useful for you. And then you've wasted your time, energy, and resources on running a test that doesn't net you anything. The second pitfall is that there has to be real intent to learn. What I mean by that is that you've probably seen people who go into tests with already their mind made up and they're just using the test as a rubber stamp. That's not a great situation to be in because that means you're not listening to your users. You're in danger of wasting resources and building features that are not going to be useful to your users, and your teams become cynical. So really take the time upfront to figure out what you want to learn from your test. So let me give you an example of what your learning goals can look like. I have no affiliation with Lego.com or Amazon, but let's pretend for a moment that I'm a PM for Lego and I want to see how my website compares against the Lego landing page on Amazon. Luckily, I have at my disposal a couple of toddlers that are ready and willing to test out my product. So I might start with a goal of finding out whether my site is better designed than Amazon. But what's wrong with a goal like that? Feel free to use the chat to type in any ideas that you have. The problem with a goal like, is my site better designed than Amazon, is that that's far too broad of a goal. Because what does better designed really mean? I need to have more specific learning goals. And so for this test of Lego.com versus Amazon, I came up with 3 learning goals for my test. First of all, as the PM of Lego.com, I want to know if my site is feasible. Can users navigate my site? Can they get what they need to get done on my site? Second, visual. Do users like seeing photos of Lego sets? Does it add to their experience? Does it help them do what they need to get done? And then finally, I want to know how fun my site is. Legos are meant to be fun. They're a toy. And so shopping for them shouldn't feel like work either. I want to know if using my site is a fun experience for my users. Now, these are my 3 goals for my test: feasible, visual, and fun, to understand how that looks for my users. But your goals are going to be different depending on what you're testing. It's going to be different depending on what feature you're testing, what stage or life cycle your product is in. The important thing is to make sure that you have clear and specific learning objectives before you start creating your test. Once you have clarity on that, then you're ready to start creating tasks for your test. And so similar to thinking about the learning goals, you have to tell your testers what it is that you want them to do. And there's 3 tips that I want you to keep in mind when you create those tasks. The first tip is that you should create tasks that will help you reach those learning goals. After all, that was the first step for a reason, that you want to make sure that you're creating a test that's going to help you learn. And these tasks should be achievable with little or no help from you. Because if your users were actually using your product in the wild, they wouldn't have you sitting over their shoulder to help you troubleshoot. The second tip is that when you communicate your tasks, try to make sure that you're phrasing your tasks or questions as neutrally as you can. You don't want to ask leading questions because you want to make sure you're getting to the real feedback. And the third tip is that sometimes if you are comparing your product against competitors, it can be helpful not to reveal which company you're aligned with. When a tester knows that you work for a company, people want to be nice and they don't want to tell you mean things about your product. So if you really want to know the truth about your product, sometimes it's helpful to just withhold the information of which company you're affiliated with so that you can get the good, the bad, and the ugly. So create tasks that are going to make sure that you get helpful feedback out of the test. So let's go again to our Lego.com versus Amazon example. In this case, I created 3 different tasks for the testers to go through, and I had each of them go through these 3 tasks on Lego.com and on Amazon. The first task is to buy a birthday present for your cousin who's turning 8 and likes Harry Potter. How would you find a Lego set that she might like? I created this task for a reason, and it's because it meets all of my learning objectives. It is going to tell me how feasible my site is, because this task focuses on whether the user can successfully navigate the site and buy something on it. It will also tell me how important visuals are to my site. It'll show if seeing Harry Potter is important to finding the set. And finally, it will definitely tell me how fun the site is to use. With toddlers, you can be sure that you will get instant and loud feedback whenever something is not fun. So similar to the first task, the second task and the third task are carefully structured in order to fulfill my learning objectives. The second task focuses on how to filter or compare different products. The third task focuses on discoverability of the purchase flow. So I recommend that you draft up your tasks, then you go back to your learning goals, compare it, make sure that you're getting what you need out of the test. If you need to, you can always edit your tasks until you feel confident that they are going to allow you to measure what you need to learn what you want out of the test. Once you're happy with the tasks that you've created, then you're ready to actually do it. And so that's step 3, observing and analyzing the results of the test. One thing that I really want to call out here is that it is so valuable to observe these tests to really be able to understand the feedback. As a PM, sometimes you're the person in the room with the user, sometimes you're not. And so even if you're not, I highly recommend watching the session live or a video of it and not just taking the temptation of just reading a report of the findings. And the reason why it's so important is because what people say and what they do are not always the same thing. I've been in many sessions before where a user tells you, this is so easy, but then when you watch what they're doing, they're actually struggling or doing it wrong. So you want to be in the room so you can observe those behaviors and notice when there are those discrepancies. You also want to look for any themes across your testers. If one person gives you a suggestion on how to improve your product, that's great. You should definitely consider it. But if all of your testers give you the exact same suggestion, then you probably know that that's something you need to look into carefully. You want to pay attention to any feedback that is super positive or super negative, and pay attention to the weight of all the feedback that you get. So now let's look at, again, the Lego.com and the Amazon example. I'm going to show you what the site looks like. And I don't have a recording of the actual testing session, but let's look at the site first and then I'll share with you how it went. As you can see at the top of this page, there's a hero. There were a couple of items that were merchandised there. As you scroll down, it's really quite a lot of content. There's trending, there's featured sets. In featured set, it's actually carousel. You can click to the right a couple times and see lots of different products. You can keep scrolling down the page and see that there are new products like QR codes for Harry Potter. There are spotlight items with items like dots and Minecraft. You can see how Lego has introduced Braille bricks for people who are visually impaired so that they too can enjoy Legos. And then finally, there's recommended items based on things you've looked at in the past that might be interesting for you. So you can see there's a lot to see on the Lego.com page. And that was reflected in how the kids tested this page. They spent a lot of time on this page. First, they scanned down the whole page. Then they scrolled through the carousel of featured sets until they reached the end of it. Next, they scrolled down the rest of the page. And throughout, they were bouncing back and forth, looking at a set, using the back button to go back to the main page. They were really exploring and seeing everything that Lego.com had to offer. They actually didn't see anything from Harry Potter on the homepage at the time that they were looking at it. And so quite surprisingly, they found the magnifying glass icon in the top right of the page and were able to use the search feature to type in Harry Potter. Through that, they eventually found the Harry Potter set in the right price range, but they never saw the add to that button. Now let's see how the Amazon page compared. You'll see right away that the Amazon page is much more Spartan in comparison to Lego.com. You have some category tiles, and once you click on one of those, it'll take you into a list of products. Those tiles are interrupted by recommended items, which is a carousel and shows some different things that might be interesting for you. And right away, it goes back into the category tiles. And that's it. That's the whole page. You see that, again, reflected in the way that the kids use this page. On Amazon, the kids immediately clicked onto a category tile that brought them up to a page full of Lego products. They were able to find Harry Potter quickly there. They just manually scanned for a set that was in our price range. They even found the add to cart button on that page. On Amazon, finding was quick and easy. On Lego, finding was a journey. So which website has a better design? Who won the test? Put in your comments right now and tell me which site you think performed better. If I just looked at how quickly the testers were able to complete the tasks, then I would conclude that Amazon beat Lego, hands down. And that would probably be my takeaway if all I did was read a report about the test. But because I observed and saw exactly how they behaved while they were using it, that led me to a different conclusion. Why were their behaviors so different on the two sites? To understand this, I created a diagram of each page. It's really high level, as you can see, and it just represents each component on the page as a block. What strikes you about these two diagrams? When I looked at it at this component level, what I saw made it very obvious of why their behavior was different on each website. As you can see on the Amazon side of the page, their page is about 3 screen lengths long when you scroll down, whereas Lego.com's page was almost double at 5 screen lengths. Amazon's page was streamlined to get you right into that browse paradigm right away, whereas Lego.com's was disorganized with a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Amazon is really streamlined to make it easy for you to find what you're looking for, whereas Lego.com was making it easy for you to get lost in the task. Because I gave the kids shopping tasks, I was inadvertently testing for a very specific use case, which happened to align better with Amazon's purpose. On Lego.com, they were exploring what was there. They were feeling inspired by what they saw, and they were building desire for what they wanted to buy in the future. So coming back to the question of whether Amazon or Lego.com perform better, the answer really is, it depends. Because whether a design is good or not, it depends on how well it achieves the goal. Both websites ultimately passed the Toddler UX test. However, Amazon performs better for the user goal of buying efficiently, whereas Lego.com performs better for the user goal of creating desire. If I were a PM at Lego.com and my learning goals were to understand how feasible, visual, and fun my website is, then I would take away from this test that it scored really well on visual and fun, but maybe look into some improvement on how I could improve feasibility, especially given that my testers struggled on figuring out how to add to cart. So today, we walked through why user testing is an important tool to design great products and how you can do user testing. First, you want to start with figuring out what you want to learn. Next, you want to create tasks for the test. And last, you want to observe and analyze the results. Throughout, I shared an example of how I got my toddlers involved in user testing. Whether you're an aspiring or new PM, or even a seasoned veteran, hopefully this example helps inspire you to find opportunities to practice product and design principles in your daily life. If you like this webinar, I write a newsletter about once a week. You can sign up for free at laurenchanlee@substack.com. You can also follow me on Medium or find me on LinkedIn. I hope to see you again soon. Thank you very much.